Okay, so what I'd like to do in the little bit of time that I have is just to give you context to how this event came about, what we're trying to achieve through it, and to give that to you in the context of what the JSE does around sustainability. So I'll talk a little bit about our approach to sustainability and then give you some background about the SRI Index, which is what informs which companies get invited to this event today, and then just to talk a little bit more about the briefing, how it runs, and what we're trying to do to promote the conversation. So firstly, for the JSE, sustainability is a multifaceted topic. Most of you who are active in the space will know that sustainability is not stagnant, it's a dynamic thing. The terminology changes every year, so it's very difficult to keep up with what the latest buzzword or acronym is. For the JSE, though, we need to balance a number of pressures. So on the one hand, we're a listed company ourselves. So we also need to pay heed to our own policies and practices and impacts to make sure that we have proper conversations with our stakeholders so that we can deliver a return to our shareholders at the end of the day. But also as a regulator and as a key player in the local economy and a company with global reach, we have a significant amount of influence over the people that we regulate and over the people who use our marketplace. And also we have convening power in terms of facilitating debate and conversation around topics of interest to the general economy. So we need to balance these kinds of pressures. To give you two quick examples, from the listed company perspective, the JSE is essentially a technology-driven company these days. So things like energy supply and electricity issues, to make sure that we're able to keep our technology up and running on an ongoing basis so that the market can keep on running, is a significant concern for us. And that's something that we need to pay attention to in terms of how we manage our relationship with the various stakeholders and how we manage our own energy use. On the opposite side, in terms of our external sphere of control and influence, our business is reliant on having companies to list and having people to trade those companies that are listed. So the sustainability of the companies that list on the JSE is of paramount concern to our own business, and therefore we also have a vested interest in making sure that the way that they operate can happen in a sustainable manner. So that approach informs how we think about sustainability and informs the kind of initiatives that we have been putting in place to help promote the conversation. So we take what is known as a hybrid approach. Our approach spans a number of areas. In the top left-hand corner there, you will see our regulatory framework, which Carla has alluded to, is something that we receive a lot of international accolade for as being very sophisticated and very effective. Around ESG issues, we have mandatory governance requirements, so companies are required to have certain policies and practices in place around board, around audit, etc. And then, as many of you will know by now, ever since the first King Code came out, it's been a requirement on the JSE for companies to report on an annual basis how they comply or explain with the King Code. Now at King 3, it's apply or explain. And that also includes integrated reporting and the move towards integrated reporting. So listed companies need to report in an integrated manner or to explain why they are not doing so, which is why we've seen such a swift movement in South Africa. Then in the top right-hand corner, investment tools, how we facilitate the debate and how we give companies guidance. The SRI Index is our flagship, and I'll talk about that a little bit more just now. And then in the bottom, more in terms of how we deal with the various players in the industry. So around engagement, we have events like today, the ESG Investor Briefing, which started out as a showcase, but has now become more of an in-depth engagement opportunity for the investor community. And then around advocacy, the JSE is active in a number of panels, committees, the UN Principles for Responsible Investment, where we are one of the few stock exchanges still that are a signatory. The Sustainable Stock Exchanges Initiative, where we're a founding member, and I think that initiative now has just around 10 partner exchanges, but many others also follow it. We're also a member of the recently formed Sustainability Working Group of the World Federation of Exchanges, which was specifically formed to inform the conversation within the exchange industry around what we can do in relation to promoting greater transparency and sustainable business. Then we're a member of King 3 as well as the CRISA committee and various other panels and committees, and some of you in the audience I see on some of those committees from time to time. So overall, we really try to create an enabling environment where conversation can happen around sustainability, where we believe it's important for market transparency and investor protection. We will regulate to the extent that we believe necessary. But beyond that, we're really trying to take a positive and encouraging approach. And that has informed the SRI Index as well. So as I mentioned, that's our flagship initiative, and that's been the main channel through which we've engaged both companies and investors around topics of environment, society, and governance. It was pioneering when it was launched in 2004, because it was the first of its kind to be run by an exchange, and it was the first of its kind in an emerging market. Nowadays, there are a number of exchanges that are active in the space, so it's a much more interesting conversation. It's not so lonely anymore. But we certainly have a lot of experience to share, but we also have a lot to learn from those that are just starting out. So the index really aims to encourage integrated risk management. It doesn't promote any specific kind of approach, so our criteria don't refer to any specific kind of initiatives or specific frameworks or things to use. It tries to allow companies to assess what their impacts and opportunities and risks are, and to manage those in an integrated fashion. It's a positive and aspirational index, so we don't have any ethical exclusions. The nice thing about having an umbrella index like that is for the investor that is interested in excluding certain industries or who has a particular values-based approach, they can apply that as a screen to remove whichever industries they would like to delete. The criteria that we use at the moment are aligned to global standards, so it's a mix of global standards and local imperatives, which also makes the index unique because issues like black economic empowerment, HIV and AIDS, skills development, and some of the governance elements are brought in with a particular South African focus, which for the multinational companies brings balance in terms of how they run their operations across the world. The criteria cover environment, society, governance, and then we've had focus criteria for climate change since 2010. Just for those of you that are interested in the technical construction, the eligible universe at the moment is the entire FTSE JSE All-Share Index. So that makes up 99% of the JSE's market cap, which is the largest tradable universe that we can use as the base for this index. At the moment, we do an automatic assessment of that full universe using only publicly available information. So we've seen a shift from promoting policies and practices to now promoting disclosure. And the companies who have been with us on this journey, well, certainly all of those that are in the room today have been with us on this journey for all or most of the last 10 years, will remember the evolution that we've gone through in terms of starting with a policy approach to maturing where they are now in terms of being transparent about what they do. We do an annual assessment. We have an external data provider that collects the data. They then engage with companies around what they have found, and companies have an opportunity to supply what they can give in addition. We as the JSE then engage on controversial issues, and where there are borderline cases where companies are able to make commitments, we have specific engagements around that. And then once you meet the minimum threshold to be in the index, it's a market cap weighted construction, so you fall in at your full free float market cap in terms of the FTSE JSE Africa Index series methodology. That's a mouthful. Right, so very quickly, the criteria. We have an impact classification in the criteria because while all companies have an impact on the environment, the impact varies from industry to industry. So higher impact companies, which includes extractive, chemical, agricultural, food producers, those kinds of sectors, they have a higher threshold to meet, while the medium and lower impact have respectively lower thresholds then to meet. It's activity-based, so we look at the range of types of activities that typically happen in a sector, and then what the impact on that particular issue is will determine what your overall impact classification is. Within the environment, the indicators we look at then across the board, policy, management, and reporting. But we typically look here at how the company is taking responsibility for the key issues around the environment, whether they are putting targets and objectives in place to manage and measure how they are dealing with their impacts, and then how they're reporting on that. Society and governance take a thematic approach. So within each of those, we have a range of themes, each with their own indicators, between core and desirable indicators. So as I mentioned, you will see the South African specific issues in there: training and development, labour relations, community relations, equal opportunities, health and safety, etc. And then in the governance area, we've also incorporated some of the more economic elements like business valuation, risk management, and indirect impacts beyond the more basic board practice and ethics issues. Climate change. So climate change is a new area that we've had for about 4 years. But the idea there is that it's incremental. So at the moment, we manage very basic commitments to deal with climate change and to measure and disclose on your emissions. Those companies that do use CDP find it quite easy to balance what they report on for the SRI Index versus what they report on for the CDP. So we try to retain some alignment there. Just to give you the current statistics, as you'll see over the years, we started off in 2004 with 74 companies who all volunteered to be assessed. We're now at the full all-share index. So last year that was 157 companies that were automatically assessed. Over the years also, we've seen the number of constituents grow to where it is now today. So it is 71 at the moment. It was 72 until recently when African Bank was removed following their suspension of trade. And then in terms of best performers, you need to meet an additional threshold to be recognized as a best performer. We've seen a lot of moves there over the years, some high spikes and then some big dips. The biggest dip that we saw was between 2012 and 2013, and we ascribe this mostly to the shift from moving away from private information to only looking at public information, where the best performers have all of the information in place to be a best performer, but it's not necessarily all in the public domain. So only 6 companies met that threshold against public information last year. But we hope to see a bit more this year in terms of those numbers. If you were to look by size, the top 40 companies tend to dominate, typically because they have a lot of resources to manage sustainability issues. Many of them are very engaged in the debate and are also advanced reporters in the South African context. But also the interesting thing here is that over the last 4 to 5 years, we've seen a lot of moves across the top 40. So it's not the same companies year on year. I think that being in the top 40 comes with the added accountability of reporting on sustainability issues, and that's why we've seen such a high number of top 40 companies remaining there. In terms of the mid-caps, we've seen the biggest growth in the mid-caps between 2008 and 2009, when we moved them to an automatic assessment. So we still have around half of the mid-caps in there, which is very high when you look at the number of sectors that are in there. Problematic sectors within the mid-caps include your property sector, which often is constituted of real estate investment trusts and unit trust type of legal structures, which makes it difficult for them to meet criteria around staff and labour relations where they don't have any. And then the small caps have remained kind of steady over the years, very much similar companies that have been there year on year. But in last year, in 2013, when we did an automatic assessment of the small cap sector for the first time, we saw a number of companies, there were at least 20 of them that came really close to qualifying for the index, which is really encouraging to see how they are starting to look at these issues. Also in terms of the engagements that we've had, Mahiba will provide testimony to the fact that the number of small cap companies that have been phoning us this year and just asking about what it is that they need to do around this space is really quite encouraging and nothing that we've experienced before. So what is the value proposition of an index like this? So if you're an issuer, it's an aspirational benchmark. So it gives you an idea of what the issues are that you typically need to address, while giving you the flexibility of managing it in a way that is appropriate to your business. gives you streamlined indicators with global reach and local significance, and also then that increased accountability and focus on transparency that comes from use by investors of the index and the companies in there. As I mentioned, for the multinationals, it closes the loop between the local imperatives and the global practices that they need to follow wherever they operate. But specifically, and this is something that we've tried to focus on for the companies because this is one of the key value propositions for them, is the potential for increased engagement as well as investment. And since the launch of the UNPRI in 2006, we've really seen accelerated interest in engaging with companies that are in the index. For the investors, which most of you in the room represent, the index offers you a pool of companies that have been pre-screened against global best practices and local imperatives. So for an investor that's starting out and doesn't necessarily have research capacity, an index like this is a very useful place to start where the assessment has already been done. I know you like predictability, so a known universe of candidates that comes with a menu of diverse constituents across sectors, sizes, and varying types of industries and environmental impacts is also something that makes the index and its broad coverage really attractive. And what we're working on at the moment going forward is increasing data availability and also focusing on more engagement opportunities going forward. The sectors that have been consistently strong, I've mentioned the property sector already, they don't appear there. Consistently strong has been mining and banks. Other strong sectors, general, financial, industrial, life insurance, and the construction sector, they've done traditionally well over the years. So you can see there more the higher impact sectors that manage the issues. Growth sectors, and we call them growth sectors because we see a lot of divergence within the sector. The retail sector, we have some companies who do really well, and you'll see Woolworths later today, who've always been very strong. Some companies don't feature. Food producers and health have grown significantly over the past couple of years. So as I mentioned, we want to keep moving forward. The JSE is seen as a key player in sustainability locally and globally, with a strong reputation for taking leadership. We want to continue that position. And we want to expand the influence that the index has had to date because we see that the issue is taken seriously, and we also see that the investors are increasingly starting to use it as a benchmark. So our intention is to retain that impact, but to expand what we do. So we will do that, and you'll see more about this, especially from next year. Once we finish this year's index review, we will start to make announcements around the expanded service offering going forward. So you'll see expanded data collection across a range of global indicators. You'll see access to data that will be available to our clients, and we'll be looking for opportunities to enhance the issuer interface. So you'll see in the evaluation form that there are some questions around how we can improve these opportunities. Please do give us your feedback so that we can use that to create more and expanded opportunities for you to engage with companies. The briefing that we're having today grew out of the need for focused engagements between issuers and investors around ESG issues. It was specifically brought to us by a company who said, look, they really want to be able to have an opportunity to talk to their shareholders or to talk to investors generally about what they do around sustainability. We've now run the event successfully for 4 years, and we just remain amazed at how much interest it attracts. The companies are really keen to participate. This year we actually had more companies than what we could fill, but then unfortunately when Liberty withdrew, it was too late notice to bring on the waitlisted companies. So as I said, we'd like to continue to grow and expand this event, and we're looking for more ideas in terms of what we can do, smaller events, sector-focused events and the like. But what we've tried to do since last year, we've tried to bring in a little bit more of a structure to the way that companies present. So while companies still will reflect on their own journey, we've tried to give them brief guidelines on what kinds of issues to address so that you, as the audience, can see more comparability and more kind of structure around how they present. So the value driver framework that we've given them is a joint project of the Global Compact and the PRI, with the aim of allowing unique content, but to bring in investor relevance and some comparability and some financial analysis. So you will see in the presentations today, each of them take a very unique angle. Some of them have decided to focus on a particular element of how they run sustainability. Others have taken a more broader approach. But what you should be seeing is that they're talking about the sustainability investment case, how ESG is integral to their strategy and creating that investment case for their shareholders, and also to focus on the material value drivers that they use to measure how they are performing on sustainability. So that's just to give you a little bit of guidance when you listen to the presentations today. Those are the things that you'll be hearing, and that will enable you to compare what you're hearing. And those are the other elements. I'll leave that up just for a second, but my time is up. So thank you again for coming here today. I really hope that you enjoy today. We have some high quality companies that will be presenting today, some really exciting presenters, and I'd like to thank each one of them for taking the time out of your diaries to be here and to come and share your story with us. And I look forward to hearing, and I hope you all enjoy the day. Thanks.